people, how are you doing today? I'm Makeda Valletta, also known as the Body Scientist. And in case you're unfamiliar with me, I have a background in exercise and sports science, nutrition science. I am live right now on my IG page. I will save it and then repost it to my YouTube. So make sure you follow me in both places, especially because they keep trying to delete all my stuff, okay? This is I'm on my Instagram page, the Body Scientist, _body_scientist, but my YouTube page, the Body Scientist 81, has 2 strikes against it, and they say if I get 1 more strike, they're going to delete the page. So I will be posting this on my other YouTube page, the Renaissance Amazon, and I'm going to start a Patreon page where I can really talk about health stuff, because I don't understand why I did a video on the chemistry of why it's important to understand the chemistry of fats. That video got deleted for medical misinformation, okay? Even though I have a background in nutritional biochemistry, I give references with everything that I do. I showed a book that was written by the previous head of the nutritional biochemistry department at the University of Maryland. And the video was taken down and a warning about my page being deleted. And then there's another video where I'm dancing to salsa music, and that was a problem. And then another video that I made about natural immunity, okay? And it was 2 videos, and they took the second one down for misinformation, and so that page may get deleted at any moment. So this is the reason why I say it's important to follow me on all platforms, because you never know. And I will be starting a Patreon page so I can really talk about some health things the way that I want to and need to, because, you know, YouTube doesn't pay me. I've never gotten monetized by YouTube, because then you can't say what you want to say. You have these rules about what you can say. I'm not the kind of person that can be controlled in terms of what I say because of money. That's never no. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And I'm going to tell the truth, because this is the reason why I work for myself and I don't work in a hospital or work for some organization that's telling me I have to lie to people, okay? So when this is done, I'll be posting my link to my Patreon page below. But anyhow, I hope you all are well. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with me, as I said, I have a background in exercise and sports science. And oh yeah, sorry. Thank you. I'm trying to read the comments. My approach to health is holistic. And when I say holistic, a lot of people use that term. It's like, what does that mean? Having a background in exercise science, I understand a lot about movement, biomechanics, the physiology of exercise, kinesiology, all of that, our body movements, how certain activities affect different aspects of our functioning. I also have a background in nutrition science and nutritional biochemistry. So nutrition is the backbone of everything, okay? Everything. Whether we're talking about our immune system, our gut health, our skin health, our reproductive health, whatever it is, nutrition, how we develop, from how we age, nutrition, okay? And I believe in staying as close to nature as possible. All right, I'm not a fan of supplements and stuff that come from laboratories. I'm not a fan of pharmaceuticals, which is, whenever you speak the truth in that way, they always come for you, which is one of the reasons why I decided not to be a scientist, because originally I wanted to be a scientist and do research, but then I saw the politics in that, okay? And what happens to scientists when they try to tell the truth, because nobody listens to the scientist, okay? So with that being said, I want to have a conversation today about cannabis and gut health, all right? For those of you who follow my work, I've been talking for years, okay? I have videos from over 10 years ago where I was talking about the importance of the gut microbiome, and not just our gut microbiome, the microbiome on our skin, okay? Because our skin is our largest organ. Our skin is a part of our immune system, because our skin, the first level of contact to get into our body, something is, interacting with our skin. So our skin plays a huge role in protecting what comes in and out of our body. Then our gut, about 75% of our immune system is in our gut. Our gut and our skin, what's good for your gut is good for your skin. Gut health and skin health is intrinsically linked. When I see somebody that has a lot of skin problems, I know that they have gut issues. I know that they have an imbalance of bacteria in their gut, okay? And most people, it's called intestinal dysbiosis. And most people do have that problem now, unless they're conscious about consuming fermented foods and eating and taking probiotics. And a lot of people aren't, okay? If you're eating foods with pesticides and herbicides and antibiotics, if you've taken antibiotics, if you're using the Purell and hand sanitizer, all of those things destroy your microbiome. So I'm not going to get super into that in this video because I have other videos where I talk about that. But just understand that, when it comes to our gut, when we have an imbalance of bacteria, it's a breeding ground for disease. The same is true with our vagina. The same thing is true with our skin, okay? And, okay, so all living organisms have requirements for life, okay? So you can't take a plant from the rainforest and go plant it in a desert, okay? It will die because a rainforest plant needs tons of water. So if you put it in the desert, it's not going to be enough water, it will die. If you take a desert plant and you put it in the rainforest, okay, it's going to die because it's too much water, all right? They have different requirements for life. We could not decide to go live in the ocean, okay? But I'm just going to jump in the ocean and live in the ocean. Even though there's life in the ocean, and there's oxygen in the ocean because it's H2O, so there is oxygen there, but it's not the right percentage that we need. So if we tried to go live underwater, we would suffocate and die. And if the creatures in the ocean try to come live in your house, they would suffocate and die, okay? All organisms have specific requirements for life, and they cannot survive in the same environment. A desert plant and a rainforest plant can't survive in the same environment, okay? And so the same is true for bacteria. We have good bacteria and we have bad bacteria. The good bacteria are our first line of defense against all infectious disease. Let me say that again. The good bacteria are our first line of defense against all infectious disease, okay? And so you have a lot of disease-causing organisms, bacteria and viruses, that are anaerobic, meaning they cannot survive in the presence of oxygen, okay? Oxygen destroys them. Well, we have oxygen-producing bacteria that should be in abundance in our gut, in the vaginal canal, stuff like that, okay? We have hydrogen peroxide-producing bacteria. So if you have a bunch of hydrogen peroxide-producing bacteria, and again, hydrogen peroxide is producing oxygen because hydrogen peroxide, the chemical nomenclature for it, is H2O2. Water is H2O. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. So it has oxygen, more oxygen. Twice the amount of oxygen is water, right? So if you have a bunch of hydrogen peroxide producing bacteria in your gut, and you become exposed to some type of infectious disease because somebody coughs in your face, because you eat some food that is contaminated with E. coli, or any of those things. You drink some water with some stuff, and it comes into your system, and you have a bunch of oxygen-producing bacteria, which means you have an oxygenated area in your oxygenated ecosystem environment inside your body, in your gut. That disease-causing organism will suffocate and die. It will not be able to survive, okay? So you have to understand that about your immune system. When you don't have a lot of, when you have an imbalance of bacteria, okay, how do you get hydrogen peroxide producing bacteria? I take a supplement by the company called Garden of Life. Because there's something, in terms of the hydrogen peroxide producing bacteria, there's something called homeostatic soil organisms. And homeostatic soil organisms are microbes that should be in the soil in abundance, and they used to be some generations ago. But because of the overuse of pesticides and herbicides in the crops, it's no longer there. So we would normally get inoculated with it when we play in the dirt, when we eat fruits and vegetables, but it's no longer in our soil. So there's a company called Garden of Life, and there's a man named Jordan S. Rubin. I wish I had his book because he wrote a book with a gastroenterologist. I read this book like over 15 years ago. I'll try to write it below, but his name is Jordan S. Rubin. And he wrote a book about gastrointestinal health and in a few books. And that's how I learned about homeostatic soil organisms. And since 2003, I have used those probiotics, as have my clients. for a variety of things, and I have seen it work for a variety of things. Okay, so and then you have the hydrogen peroxide producing bacteria, which are very special, and then you have lactic acid producing bacteria like the acidophilus strains, stuff like that, right? And all cultures have fermented foods. All cultures had some kind of fermented produce like sauerkraut, kimchi, cortado, or they had some kind of fermented dairy like yogurt or sour cream. Okay, every culture has some kind of fermented food that they ate with their meals. Even in the U.S., ketchup and relish traditionally were fermented foods. Okay. The way that they're made now, it's not made that way. But, think about it. You're eating a hot dog, you put ketchup and relish on it. Those are two fermented foods. So people always consume fermented foods with their meals. All right? So yes. So it's important to protect your microbiome. And I want to have a quick talk about how cannabis helps to, strengthen your microbiome and your gut health. All right? I've definitely been on this cannabis kick lately because it's a very powerful healer, because it activates and balances our endocannabinoid system. And our endocannabinoid system is, we have CB1 and CB2 receptors all over our body, which are receptors for cannabinoids, and cannabinoids are stuff like CBD and THC, and you have CBN and CBG. There's a bunch of them. THC and CBD are the most talked about, but they bind to receptors, okay? And there are receptors for them, like practically all of our body, all of our skin, all of our internal organs, all of our brain, our central nervous system, like everywhere. And the same is also true for vitamin D. Vitamin D and cannabinoids play very similar roles in the body in terms of how they regulate so many functions, okay? And thus can help heal so many issues, all right? So with that being said about the microbiome in the gut, this is something that I've been aware of since the 90s, okay? And definitely check out some of my older YouTube videos where I'm talking about this and I go into depth. But so even with that being said, I came across some strains I had never heard of before when I was studying how cannabis affects the gut. So there's a bacterial strain I had never heard of before, and it's called Akkermansia mucinifila. Akkermansia mucinifila. I never heard of this strain before. Okay, but apparently the THC in cannabis, it increases the abundance of that species, of that bacterial species. Okay, and that bacterial species controls fat burning, storing fat, the metabolism of our fat. So the more of that bacteria you have, the more fat you burn. So this is the other thing that people don't understand. People talk about genetics all the time, and people think that genetics is like just what you inherited from your parents. But it's not. And even when you do inherit genes from your parents, please understand that genes can be turned on and they can be turned off, depending on your environment, aka food, nutrients. Nutrients and chemicals could turn off genes, turn them on, mutate them, okay, the code for cancer and other stuff. So there's that. But it's not just about our genetics that came from our parents. It's also about the fact that we have more bacterial cells on our body, in our gut, on our skin. Like, we have more bacterial cells than we do our own cells, our own human cells. And all of those bacterial strains have DNA. So our microbiome is affecting our health and what we do in life and how we move and what we want a lot more sometimes than the genetics we got from our parents. So understand that too. So this is the reason why it's really important to understand that we coexist. We coexist with microbes. It's not about trying to, I'm going to try to get rid of them all. Like the problem with hand sanitizer, the artificial ones, or antibiotics, is that it kills all the bacteria, right? And when it kills all the bacteria, it also kills the good bacteria. And again, the good bacteria is your first line of defense against all infectious disease. So you don't want to use something that kills all the bacteria. And then the once they're depleted, good bacteria and bad bacteria, they're always competing for colony space. So if you wipe them all out, and the bad bacteria are actually more aggressive, so they're always competing. But but the bad bacteria is more aggressive. If you wipe them all out, the bad bacteria comes back faster and recolonizes that space. And we don't want that to happen because why? Because then they create their environment that's optimal for their survival, and then the good bacteria can't survive, right? So this is the reason why if you were ever given antibiotics, you have no choice. I would avoid them with all my might, because every cycle you get, it does more and more damage. It's harder to come back from. So I would really avoid them. But if in some situation you cannot avoid antibiotics because maybe you're in the hospital with an IV and you just can't stop them, in those cases, you have to really double down on probiotics a high level for some time after that. Okay, it does severe damage. Okay, so THC helps to increase these bacterial cells that help to burn fat, right? And also, cannabinoids help to strengthen the integrity of the gut wall, right? Which also the probiotics play an important role too. Because when the gut wall has these tight junctions, and when they don't stay tight, when they're not tight, all kinds of things leak through into your blood and cause allergies and all kinds of problems, okay? So it's really important not to have a leaky gut. And cannabinoids can prevent that from happening, as can the collagen in broth and the arachidonic acid in animal fats, okay? Whoo, talking to the camera, you don't understand how tired it makes me. Like, I could be talking to somebody on the phone or in person for hours and I'm fine. When I'm talking to the camera, it drains my energy so much. Oh my God. Okay. So this bacteria that I'm telling you about, Akkermansia municiphala, it also improves the endocannabinoid system, the function of it. Okay, the connection between the gut and the brain. There is a gut-brain connection. Okay, this is known. The same hormones that act in our gut act in our brain. All right. So this bacterial strain helps that process become even more efficient. And it strengthens the gut barrier, as I said. Thank you, love. Then CB1 receptors, okay, they are most commonly found in the brain, in the central nervous system, and the spine. In the, hey love, hey Ia. They're found in the ovaries, in the uterus, the penis, the vagina, the gut. Okay. There's also a big connection between the gut and our reproductive organs. Like, what's good for the gut is good for the vagina. Okay. In terms of herbs, in terms of a lot of things. Even the bacterial strains, so they both need to be acidic. No, the vagina, a healthy vagina is an acidic vagina. Same thing with the gut. Okay, with the stomach and stuff like that. You don't want an alkaline vagina. It's a breeding ground for disease. You don't want an alkaline gut or stomach. That's also a breeding ground for disease. Okay, so, but THC binds is more binds to CB1 receptors way more powerfully. Okay, so what is it gonna say? So even in my notes, it's. Well, I'm not going to get into this because it's getting a little bit too scientific and complicated. But there's a lot of things that these CB1 receptors do to actually improve gut health. And THC is heavy with that. Now, I'm not going to say that you can't get it from CBD, but THC is going to be way more potent when it's coming to the gut health, right? But there's so many properties in cannabis that are beneficial. You have terpenes, you have many different properties. Also, studies have shown that cannabis is able to exert antimicrobial properties against a number of organisms, which is something that I also know is something I also know is that what am I trying to say? I'm losing my train of thought. This is the reason why using cannabis infused coconut oil is good, because coconut oil also has very potent antimicrobial properties. Coconut oil is mostly lauric acid. Lauric acid is known to kill lipid-contained viruses, okay? Lipid-contained viruses are they're probably going to try to delete me because I'm telling you this. That's why I'm going to start my Patreon page. But lipid-contained viruses are viruses like the herpes virus, the HIV virus, the HPV virus, the C19 virus. I'm not going to say it. So all those are lipid contained. It's been known for decades that lauric acid kills those viruses, okay? So now if you have that potent antimicrobial activity in the coconut oil, and then you have the potent antimicrobial activity that already exists in cannabis, guess what that is? A very potent antioxidant. Antibacterial. Okay, you can also use it as an antibacterial agent by taking a tincture. Okay, the tincture is even more powerful. All right. And then there's something, I guess these are like some type of microbes that are in our gut. Firmicides, what are these called? These are called bacterial, I'm probably saying these wrong. Bacteriocides and firmicules and bacterioids, I don't know. These are not ones that I'm used to. There's so many different organisms in our gut, bacteria, viruses, all of that, okay, that have a role and play a role in maintaining our health. So there's something that's called firmicules and bacterioles or something like that, right? So a high ratio of the two, a high ratio of firmicules and bacterioles, that high ratio is characteristic of obesity. Characteristic of obesity, meaning obese people usually have high numbers of those, right? And recent evidence has demonstrated that THC can restore that skewed ratio, okay? That ratio shouldn't be like that. So somebody who's obese and they have this skewed ratio of those microbes, THC can help, balance that out, all right? And hold on a minute. The one other thing I wanted to say is that in obese mice, the gut microbiome modifies the ECS signaling. ECS is the endocannabinoid system, okay? So I'm sure that's true in us too. And when that happens, so when you have that modification, it can lead to more, more lipolysis, more fat burning, okay? And the thing is that this is also known, you could look this up. It's known that when they take studies of obese people and they give them a fecal transplant, which sounds pretty gross, right? But it's something that's done. They give them a fecal transplant so they can get the microbiome of a skinny person. They lose weight. When they take the microbiome of an obese person and they do a fetal transplant, they do a lot of this on mice, these studies. They take the microbiome from the obese person with a fecal transplant and they put it in a thin person or a mouse or whatever, they end up getting fat. Because, like I said, it's not just the genetics that you get from your parents, it's the microbiome that controls everything. Sugar feeds bad bacteria, okay? So people who are addicted to sugar, who always need to eat cake and cookies and pastry and blah, 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 just like addicted to all the sweet stuff, they can never stop that addiction like cold turkey, because the bad bacteria that's feeding, the sugar is feeding that bad bacteria is creating chemicals and like hormones that are affecting your brain and taking over you and making you crave these things in a way that you have no control. Okay? So protecting your microbiome is really important. And also, when you have an imbalance of gut bacteria, it can allow a yeast to grow out of control called Candida yeast. And when the Candida yeast goes out of control, it grows branches and pokes holes in your intestinal walls. And when it pokes holes in your intestinal walls, now when you eat certain proteins and things leak through your gut and causes allergies and inflammation and all these problems. That's called leaky gut syndrome. So cannabis plays a huge role in preventing that, and as does arachidonic acid, which is a fat from animals, as does vitamin D, cholesterol, all of that. And what was I going to say? So if somebody has, there's so much more I want to say, but I'm starting to get so tired. I'm gonna have to do like a part 2 of this video. For some reason, this video is like draining life out of me. Because sometimes I can talk for an hour, but I can't do it today. So what was I saying? So if somebody, coconut oil also helps you to burn fat. So if somebody's having an issue with obesity, because a lot of times people have a metabolic disorder. People think that because somebody has extra body fat or they're obese that they overeat. That's not always the case. A lot of times obese people don't even eat that much, but they have altered, jacked up metabolism because their microbiome is messed up and a lot of other reasons that can, so it definitely starts with the microbiome, okay? It is everything, absolutely everything, all right? And cannabis can help that. People with ulcerative colitis, IBS, different gastrointestinal issues. There's so many receptors, okay? There's so many cannabinoid receptors that are part of our endocannabinoid system. So endocannabinoid means that we produce our own cannabinoids. Our bodies produce its own cannabinoids, all right, as needed. The cannabinoids that we consume from cannabis are called phytocannabinoids, which means that they came from plants, all right? And so they work, and for our endocannabinoids, the cannabinoids that our body makes is made from arachidonic acid, which is an animal fat, okay? So understand that. So people with gut issues, it was brought to my attention the other day when an elder who I gave some THC oil to for some really excruciating back pain, and he, took it and he goes to the bathroom. He said he's feeling better. He comes back. He takes all these pills. He had all these pills for diabetes, for statin drugs, some other pills. He took all these medications. 5 minutes later, he stood up and said, "Oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom. Maybe because this is cleansing me out, And when he came back, I asked him, and I never told him anything about it cleansing him out. I'm saying you're taking this for your back pain. So when he came back, I asked him, "Does this normally happen to you?" He said no. And the fact of the matter is, cannabis can help. When ingested, it does affect your gastrointestinal tract. And if you have unhealthy stuff going on, you have too many toxins, it actually can pull it out. Okay, it can pull it out. And some people, so it can increase the peristaltic contractions of the gut, which is the contractions that push things out or move them out. But it can also slow it down, and it probably has a lot to do with what that person needs. Some people may need it to be slowed down. So anyhow, I'm just getting sleepy. The camera is really draining my energy. It's very hard for me to talk to these cameras. But if you're interested, cannabis oil and tinctures have so many properties. And when it comes to your gut health and your immune system, being anti-inflammatory, alleviating pain is something that I swear by, okay? So if you're interested in gaining some oil or tinctures, feel free to email me. Feel free to hit my inbox on Instagram or email me at thebodyscientist81@gmail.com. If you have any questions, please ask them. If you have any experience using cannabis for gastrointestinal or gut issues, let me know. And I'm going to sign off, okay? I hope you guys have a great day. Bye, people.